So we have learned how to solve quadratics by factoring, and today we're going to learn a new way to solve them by square root. You use this method when there's no x term. There's just a squared term and a constant. So the first thing you have to do is isolate the squared term. That means the squared term needs to be by itself on one side of the equal sign. Number one, it is. X squared is by itself on that side of the equal sign. Well, we should know that 3 times 3 gives us 9 because 3 is the square root of 9. The way we technically find that using math skills is we take the square root of x squared and that gets us x, because that's our goal, is to find out what x is. But if we take the square root of one side of the equal sign, we must take the square root of the other because we do the same thing to both sides of the equal sign to keep it equal. Square root of 9 is 3. However, we know that negative 3 is also the square root of 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 3. Therefore, I need both answers. This parabola has two roots. It crosses the x-intercept at 2 points, 3 and negative 3. We write that like this, as plus or minus 3. You also could write it in set notation from least to greatest, negative 3, positive 3. Note that those are brackets and not parentheses. So either one could be your answer. Let's do the same thing to number 2. First of all, is the x squared term isolated? Yes, it is. So let's take the square root of both sides. That gets me x is positive or negative square root of 8. Now, square root of 8 is not a perfect square, and remember how we talked about we want to simplify this radical and not change it into a messy decimal. We want to simplify it. I'm also going to add a video on how to simplify those in case you don't remember. So if we simplified this, we would break it into 4 times 2. We know the square root of 4 is 2, so that comes outside the radical. We don't know the square root of 2, so it stays underneath. This is our answer, positive or negative 2 square roots of 2. So on this one, number 3, the squared term is not isolated. It's not by itself. To get rid of this and get it to the other side, I must do the opposite, which is add. So x squared equals 400. Now that it's isolated, square root of both sides, the square root of 400 is 20 because 20 times 20 is 400. Yet I have to have both the positive and the negative answers because if it were a parabola on the graph, once I graphed it, I would see that it crossed the x-intercept at both 20 and negative 20. Let's do another one. The squared term is not isolated, so I have to add 60 to both sides. It's still not isolated. There's a 3 in the way. Divide by 3. Now it's isolated. But if I want to take the square root of both sides, what is the square root of 20? I need to simplify it. 4 times 5. Square root of 4 is 2. I don't know square root of 5, so it stays under the radical. So that this video isn't too long, I'm going to stop here and make a part 2.